Ismail Abdulsalam, beatsboxingmayhem.com. I'm here with my illustrious co-host. You'll know her from her work on her wildly popular YouTube channel, Jeandra Was Here, and also her written and video work with Black Girl Nerds, and also Rolling Out. I'm talking about none other than Jeandra LaBeouf. Jeandra, what is a good word out there in LA?
It is finally sunny here. The gray has gone away temporarily. And just like this weather, power discussions are still hot in the universe and what could be coming up for the next season. So I'm super excited to talk to our guest today.
Absolutely. So, for those of you who've been watching our YouTube channels, last month we had a great interview with Kyle Vincent Terry, aka Obi. And I think the interview went so well that we're just moving up the criminal empire. So now we have the queen pin herself. We got to make sure we come correct. We're not trying to lose any limbs or get any new scars on her face. So we're talking about none other than Chikezie, excuse me. Carolyn, thank you so much for making time with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you, thank you. And you've done wonderful work in season three. And one thing I noticed is that as much as your character loomed over the entire season, I think you were only in about 3 or 4 episodes. And that kind of shows you the impact of the character. And I think a lot of that started with how she was introduced. That was such an important scene as far as establishing what to expect from Noma. Just talk about the mentality you brought to filming that scene, knowing that it was so important for your character for the rest of the season.
The first time you see me on screen, right? When
Yes.
in the park, yeah. Well, first of all, when I got the role, I understood that in order for the character to be believable in terms of, Tariq and the others being like, you know, having to answer to her, she had to be a badass. And I realized that in order to give her a little bit more spice, if you will, I thought I'll add a bit of, should be a bit psychotic, maybe. So when the obviously you saw the opening scene where she wanted her ring back and she was like willing to chop off a limb to get it. I just had to really fully commit to doing that. Any reservations I had, I just had to let them go and be like, if you're going to do it, do it. I didn't want any cells, any rogue cells in my body to be in opposition to what the character needed to do. So I remember we did that scene. Actually, it was a night shoot in Central Park. It was freezing. I think it was in February or something. It was minus something, freezing. So I had all my keep warm stuff on. I had like thermals, like vests, big coat, and we were all tired. And I had to hold the machete and my hands were frozen. But yeah, it was crazy. I'm going back trying to remember it now. Being in New York in Central Park in the middle of winter, chopping off limbs, I was like, this is crazy. This is actually crazy. But yeah, I just committed to it. And yeah, you saw the result of that.
With securing the role from the version that we saw on screen version versus the version that they presented to you, how close are they together? And also, up until this point, we didn't have a second strong female antagonist in the mix. So was that impressed upon you when you were trying to find who her voice was?
Okay, so the first part of the question, how it was presented to me in the script, it was pretty much so obviously the actions you saw me doing on screen, that was written, but I guess the energy behind it was something that I had to bring and I had to figure it out. And I remember Brett Mahoney, our showrunner, he was saying that they'd had trouble finding the character. So they'd seen, I think, everyone who was available. They had asked me to read for it a few months prior, but I was in a weird state of it was in 2021. The pandemic had just kind of ended. People were just getting back to work. So I was still not decided if I wanted to jump back into work or not. So I got the script, I read it, and I was like, wow, this is a lot. And I hadn't decided whether I wanted to jump back into work. So a few months later, they had, reached back out and said, look, we really do want to see you for this. And that was when I decided, okay, if I'm going to go do it, I'm just going to have to really commit. So the energy of the character, I think, as I was just saying to Ishmael, was I had to fully commit to just being a badass unapologetically, which I think, you know, you may be able to relate as a woman of color. I typically don't commit. I'm not unapologetic in life. I'm very apologetic. I'm very, oh my God, please and thank you, being British, being Black, being tall, you know, so you don't intimidate. So I just had to let that go, you know, and just be like, people are going to have a strong reaction to her. And I just had to be okay with that. So I would say it kind of differed a bit from what is on the page. So little things. So like the walk, when you see her walking into the auction hall, it wasn't, they did say she sashayed in. That was me sashaying in. And I did that because of the way the character was dressed. She had on this big fluffy coat and this black and white zebra outfit. And I thought she's gone, and the big glasses. And I was like, she's sashaying. She's not going to just walk normally. So there were little tweaks that I made. And in terms of being, you know, up until that point, there'd only been one strong female character, obviously played by the incredible Mary J. Blige. Yeah, I was honored to like join the ranks alongside her. And I do think that has to happen a lot more, Jeandra, because honestly, when you think about badass women, you can count them on one hand, like in TV and movies. There only allow us to be one, especially a woman of color, only one at a time. And I applaud Ghost for saying, actually, no, we're going to have two at a time, you know? So, yeah, just an absolute honor to be brought on, you know, and be given this platform. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think initially we thought Noma's drive was, revenge. She lost her fiance, he was killed. She wanted the ring back. She wanted to find out what happened with him. But now, as we get to the end of season 3, she found out that there was treachery on his part. And it makes me wonder, what do you feel is her motivation now heading into season 4? Because past drug lords that we've seen, they've mostly been men, and their ambition was just power, getting more drug territory, but that's never been the case with Noma. So where do you think her focus is now as far as what she wants in season 4?
I think, as you said initially, it was the revenge, getting the ring back. How dare you? You know, Mecca was my fiance. But I think as time went on, she realized there's actually an opportunity here to make even more money. I mean, she has, you know, in Europe, she hails from Europe and she had her whole empire out there. And she sees an opportunity now to come into the US and take over. So initially it was, you know, who's got what's up, you know, what happened to Mecca, my ring. And then I think when she met Tariq and the crew, and they were so eager to and willing to you know, to prove that they can, you know, move product, I think she thought, hang on a minute, I'm, you know, this is an opportunity. So I do think it's gone from revenge to an opportunity to expand her empire on US soil.
How do you think the motivational shift is different from a person motivated by revenge versus a person motivated by ambition?
Oh, great question. I think if you're motivated by revenge, your emotions are likely to have a hold on you, and your choices are going to be skewed and maybe a bit irrational. I don't think if you're motivated by revenge, it's gonna be, you be careful, be very careful, because I think in that scenario, you're likely to trip and fall on your own sword. Or as they say, you know, it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies, you know. But I think when you're motivated by business, you're more likely to have a clear head. It's not as personal, it's not as emotional. It's just 1 + 1 needs to equal 2. And yeah, I think that's the difference, emotion.
And you spoke about earlier as far as getting that motivation for the character and being willing to go to those dark places. I know sometimes actors, they kind of struggle with that when they go to that dark place to kind of pull themselves back out of it. But other times I've heard actors say they love going to that dark place. It's something new and exciting for them. How was it for you going to those places with Noma, being so violent, being so visceral with her violence, not using guns a lot of times, using, knives and intimate weapons like that. How was it going to those dark places with that character?
Honestly, it was a lot. It was hard initially. I think I may even have had nightmares.
Hmm.
Just because, yeah, I'm the sort of actor as well. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to feel the emotion running through my body as I'm doing it. So I'm not just going to spout my lines. If I'm angry, I'm going to be angry internally. Every cell in my body is going to feel what the character's feeling. So when you're doing that sort of acting, when it's being more channeled rather than just spoken, then it's gonna impact you. So I think initially I was very sort of like, oh my goodness. And I would always apologize to the cast profusely, like after each take. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh my God. And I'd be like, don't be silly. And I was just constantly apologizing because I felt so bad coming on to such an established show with all this stellar cast and like shouting at everyone. I was like, oh my goodness, they're going to think, who is this monster that they've just cast? So it was very hard. And then I noticed that my personality started to change a little bit because I'm typically quite mild-mannered, very British, very, apologetic and tiptoey. And I noticed I was like, just fly off the handle a bit more. Anyone can get it, like in your face a bit more, like, and I'd be like, oh my goodness, what's happening? Noma's taking over me. So yeah, it was very scary initially stepping into the dark side. But we're shooting season 4 at the moment, and I think as we go, then there's more levels to Noma. It's not just, she doesn't just show up and slash people. Because in season 3, every time Noma showed up, there was blood drawn, I think. Yeah. The first time you saw, she chopped an arm off. The second time you saw her, she shot and killed people in Italy. And the third time, she slashed Obi. So I think what that has done for viewers is established in their mind that Noma is a killer. And I meet people when I'm out and about, and grown men come up to me and they say, listen, I'm scared of you. They're like, yo, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so not scary, but it has been an adjustment to be seen in that way, and to be okay with it. And I'm still adjusting to be seen as that violent killer from Power. Wow, who would have thought?
In the right circumstances, that's a good problem to have, stay
Oh yeah, that's true.
So I'm very intrigued then by a snapshot of what a filming day looks like, because I think of Michael and Gianni, like they're clearly homeboys on and off camera. They do their thing together. And then Mary J. Blige, I imagine on a shoot day, big superstar, come in, shoot it, and she's out, no hanging out. So what does a snap that day, the iconic scene of you and Obi and they're there and everybody's in the room, what does the off camera look like? Because you sound like you're a very method type of performer when you're getting ready for your scene. So what's the snapshot behind the camera look like before you all walk on to begin to craft this moment?
Okay, so for me, depending on what the scenes are that day, if it's something super intense and I have a lot of dialogue, because Noma's quite chatty, so typically I'll have like big chunks of dialogue. So what I like to do is I like to not take myself out of it too much. So for example, if before they say action, I'm chilling with the cast and we're talking about what we watched on TV last night, what we had for dinner. And then when they say action, then it's very hard for me to suddenly become this psychotic Noma killer. So what I tend to do, I'm probably quiet until after we've done it a couple of times and it's kind of set. But on other days when it's not that intense, we're all just we have our cast chairs in a line, and we're catching up. We're talking, we're cracking jokes. If Meth's on set, he'll be singing, he'll be rapping. So you get a concert, which is, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. I get a concert at work. He doing his raps, he does it like off the top of his head sometimes, or he's written it down. And with Mary, oh my God, I'm so in awe of Mary, and I'm always like around her like, oh my God, you're so amazing. She's probably like, oh my God, girl, like really leave me alone, because she's just so incredible on every level, like her beauty, her talent, and she's an absolute legend. And she just has this energy around her. She just has this light, and she's an incredible scene partner. So typically I will just be chatting, and they'll be like, quiet please, because we get a bit rowdy. We catch up, we eat a lot. Well, I do. But yeah, and I think in moments where you do need to gather yourself, you do have the opportunity to step aside and just get your lines right. But I'm trying to remember the first time I did a scene with Mary was when you guys saw in Ep 10 of season 3. And oh my God, I was fangirling when I saw her, because I was just like, oh my God, you're a legend. And I just remember saying to myself, Caroline, pull it together. Nobody ain't got time for this. You got your scenes to do. So I just remembered collecting myself, and my motivation was, I want to not fluff this for Mary. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that all the times I'm feeding her the lines, it's on point. So I just said, okay, I'm going to really bring my A game. And even though I was like fangirling inside, because can you imagine, you're talking to a legend. I absolutely look up to Mary, always have. And then suddenly I've got to come and start like wagging my finger and telling her whatever. It's a very hard adjustment, because every cell in my body was like, it's Mary Jane. I just wanted to be her friend. I didn't want to have to be Noma and wag my finger and slice Obi and threaten her. You know what I mean? So I had an internal battle. But ultimately, you're a professional. You've got a job to do. You do the work. But it was internally, I was like, oh my God, I'm talking to Mary. But I think now, as the more we work together, I'm getting used to it now, and I'm calmer inside. Yeah.
It's fantastic that you brought that up, because that's such an important scene. I think you can argue that's the most important scene of the season. The two most powerful characters having a meeting of the minds there, and Obi's there to witness it. The important thing I think about that scene as well is twofold: is what happened with Obi being Flash, and also kind of coming into an understanding with Monet. So I have a two-part question. After that conversation, do you feel that Noma actually, I know she respects Monet, but do you feel she trusts her? And where do you feel the relationship is now with Obi? Because it can go in so many different directions now. He can be more devoted, or he can start looking elsewhere. Do you feel like there's a permanent fracture with the relationship that you have with Obi now?
Okay, so the first part of the question was, does Noma trust Monet? Absolutely not. No, she doesn't trust she doesn't even trust her own shadow, Noma. No, I think she just realizes that they have a lot in common. They have a lot, and she's actually like, you know what? If you want something done and you want it done well, your best bet is to get a woman of color to do it. And I think, Monet being the badass that I think she admires her. She doesn't trust her, but she's willing to, give it a try, to feel it out, to see if she can deliver. But trust for Noma has to be earned. She perhaps will trust you after 20 years of loyal service, but it doesn't come automatically, especially not with someone as skulldugger as Monet. And the second part of the question, is there a permanent fracture in her relationship with Obi? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Obi having, for them to have worked together so closely all these years, he has been privy to her violence and her violent tendencies, but never has it been so directed at him. And I think having her do that to him has made him realize that, okay, as much as, I'm her right-hand man, she would get rid of me in a heartbeat. And I think that probably would put him on guard. But also as well, the reason why she did slash him was because she realized in that moment, that he hadn't given her a vital piece of information about Effie being in jail. And she realized, okay, so you're not telling me everything that I should know. So I'm going to warn you. I'm going to warn you by slashing you. And by doing that, Monet also understands that I don't play, and she can get it too. So she killed two birds with one stone by slashing him the way she did. And yeah, I do think guys are going to have to see how their relationship plays out from that moment forward, because yeah, he took it like a champ, but I'm sure he's absolutely fuming.
It's going to be interesting to see what the structure is going to be, because then you have Noma or Monet and Obi 1A and 1B. Is there a 1A and then a 2A? So I'm curious to see how that plays out. But there's something I've always wondered, and I want your theory on this. So in that iconic scene when Brayden comes to Tariq's rescue, and it's clear they have an exchange and they say, oh, Obi called me and told me it was going down. Why didn't he just text Tariq and say, hey, it's going down, get out of there? He waited till it was a point of calling Brayden. So what is your theory? I don't want, to mess up your check.
Yeah.
What's your theory on why he called Brayden instead of just telling Tariq directly?
Because I think it played out better in terms of suspense. If he called, then it's kind of like it's direct, less drama, I guess. I think it was just maybe to increase the perhaps, and how do I say this? I think the viewers in that moment felt like, oh my goodness, could Tariq possibly not make it? I think if Obi had contacted him directly, then it would have erased that, even for a split second, belief that Tariq could not make it. So I think in terms of storytelling, it was the juicier route to take. That's my theory. But there could also be the possibility that as we go into season 4, there's a reason for that. Maybe perhaps you guys will see that there was a reason why he didn't do that.
We'll have to just
cross. Now, you mentioned earlier, you're meeting guys and they'd say, oh, I'm so scared of you based on what happened with Noma. I wanted to kind of show you the flip side of this, which you might have experienced. I'm going to read a few tweets to you about what people have been saying about Noma. So this one is from somebody called Cake the God, and he said, Noma is sexy as fuck. There's another person that said, his name is Aries Musa, Noma on Power is so sexy. And then the last one is from an Abel Pexit, who said, Noma is sexy in a scary way. And then there was a response from somebody that says, I want her to threaten me too, to be fair. So that is hilarious, but there's always been guys that have been attracted to strong, powerful women. That's nothing new. But it made me think that, Noma lost her spouse. She's technically back on the market as she needed to be. So in your mind, let's say Noma was ready to date again, got her Tinder profile, did all of that, got set up. What type of man do you envision being with someone like Noma? What would he have to make her happy?
Okay, he would have to be equally as powerful or even more powerful than her. I'm not sure if you're aware, Noma's a billionaire, so he'd have to be billionaire status, first of all.
So no bus drivers, nothing like that, no.
Oh, well, perhaps with Noma, she can go either way. It's either going to be a bus driver or a billionaire. The bus driver is going to get dealt with, though, because if she's bankrolling his entire life, the necessary respect might not be there. Whereas with a billionaire, he can tell her what to do as well. He can take charge. Not saying that, because you drive a bus, you can't take charge, but typically if you've got the purse strings, then you have quite a bit of the power in the home. So I think it's either going to be, because billionaires are not easy to come by. So especially not in Noma's world. Well, because she's wrapped up a bit in the drug world. It's either going to be a guy who is equally as powerful as she is, or someone who has zero power but is willing to do everything she says. So the guy who's willing to do everything she says, I think, would probably be someone younger than she is. and someone who is in awe of her, so that she has, like, he does everything she says without, because Noma likes to be obeyed. She loves to be obeyed. So he'd have to obey everything she says, not question it, and be really sexy and please her sexually. I think Noma would need to be pleased sexually in order to be with someone like that, and just be like her minion almost. Yeah. So what would you say, Jeandra?
I said
Yeah.
that's and it's actually a great segue then for, so as Noma, guys, calm down, not Carolyn, as Noma, marry, fuck, kill. Tariq, Kane, and Davis McLean. Who are you going to marry? Who is Noma going to marry? Who is Noma going to fuck, and who is Noma going to kill?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
We got young, we got seasoned, we got a little cuckoo, we got it all, the whole spectrum there.
Oh, bless Tariq, but she's gonna kill Tariq because she's already pissed with him. He had her daughter's name in his mouth, and she don't play that. So sorry, Tariq, she gonna kill. And out of Kane and Davis, I think she would marry Davis because he can do all her paperwork, her legal stuff, and get her legit in the States. And she'd sleep with Kane. So was it marry, kill?
Yep.
Blink.
Yeah. So yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's hilarious. And I want to go back also to your relationship with Obi. Well, actually, Carlo Vincent Terry. You know, he told me when he was on set when he was doing his Nigerian accent that some of the other people were like shocked that it was so good. And I wanted to get your opinion on it as a Nigerian woman. Did he really nail it as good as he told us he did? Just wanted to verify that.
He
'cause
hyped it up.
He did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't know if you guys are aware, but they brought him in literally the day before we filmed the whole thing. He got the notification so last minute that he was going to be Nigerian. I think up until that point, he thought he arrived on set thinking it was a bit more of a British flex. Then that's how he auditioned. And then he was told that it's going to be Nigerian. And I remember that first day filming, and I remembered thinking, oh my goodness, this actor must be under so much pressure to have to switch his accent just like that. And then he did it, and I thought, wow, professional, amazing. He was able, because he just locked in, he dropped in, he had the bass in his voice. And I think the first day he was still figuring it out. And for him to do what he did throughout the season, especially it being so last minute, I think he absolutely nailed it. You know, because he wasn't given the reasonable time that you would expect to have if you were required to use an accent other than your own. So, for example, for me, if I had to be American right now, I'd be a hot mess. You guys would be like embarrassed for me if I had to just become American right now.
Right.
You'll be like, okay, end of interview. But he did a great job, smashed it.
To piggyback on that, I see a lot of interviews where Brits are asked to impersonate American accents. Why do you think everyone defaults to like the Southern accent? It's always the default.
Yeah, it's easier for us. I think there are sounds that the Southern Americans make in the South that are similar to the UK sounds. So we can kind of do the drawl, and it's easier for us to do that. And that's our go-to. I think the general American US accent is so tricky to do. I grew up watching US TV shows, and when I first attempted American accent, I was being a Valley girl. I was like, oh my God, I was a mess. I didn't even know that wasn't normal. People were like, that's Valley girl. I was like, yeah, but isn't it? And they're like, no, that you can't play a lawyer. You can't play a doctor. You can't play a politician, like sounding like a Valley girl. So I think Southern is our easiest go-to. And definitely the hardest accent to do is just the general neutral US. It's tricky. And I applaud all the actors out there who do it at the drop of a hat. I mean, I can do it, but I definitely work on it in order to do it. I don't just flip into it. I have to like carefully choose, study each word to make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. And it greatly increases my prep time for learning lines. So typically I can learn anything quite quickly. At this age and stage of my career, I will learn it after 3 attempts of going around it. But now if you put the US accent in, add an hour on top of that. So it's a lot. It's a lot. So I applaud all the actors out there doing accents fearlessly. It's so tricky because your brain is you have to, as an actor, you have to drop in and be the character and be free. But if you're having to listen to your voice as you're doing it to make sure you're making the right sounds, it can take you out of it. It's a tricky dance. It's really, really not easy at all.
See. And talking about different cultures and everything, we get a taste of that with Power, but with these different books, there's always speculation that maybe Power can finally go international. Maybe we can get a UK book, or possibly UK and Africa might be interesting. If that were to happen, being that Americans, we're still kind of isolated. If a Power book did take place, and let's say the UK and Africa detailing organized crime over there, what do you feel is the main difference in the presentation from what we're used to seeing in Power as far as criminals from overseas? What do you think would be the main difference that might surprise the fans?
Oh, if we were to have it in the UK or
Right.
the main difference. Oh, good question. Have you guys seen Top Boy? Have you?
I have. Yes, love that show.
Yeah, Top Boy, right? I think the UK crime scene, I find this like Power, the crime scene, the drug scene, is quite bling. I think the UK will be a lot grimier, like a lot more street, because on our show, we are dressed impeccably. We have the best threads imaginable. And by the way, I love that. Oh my goodness, I get to come into work and just be dressed in them. It's incredible, but I digress. But in the UK, I think we wouldn't have as much flair in that area in how we present ourselves and how we move. It would be a lot less ostentatious. But I feel like the African Power, the Nigeria, let's say Nigeria specifically, oh my goodness, it would be even more ostentatious than Ghost. Oh yeah,
Okay.
oh my goodness.
I would be.
And it'd be incredible. There'd be private jetting everywhere, like down the road. Like it'd be insane because Nigerians, they like to enjoy. They love the good life. They know how to enjoy. And if they've got money, they're going to spend it every which way. I'll never forget like getting on flights from the UK to Nigeria, for example, or from Nigeria to the UK. And they, like say on a British Airways flight, they have the duty free. Like they have we can buy all the La Mers and all the, the creams and the perfumes and the sprays. And like, any flight you get on that is going to Nigeria or from Nigeria, you try to buy it and they say it's all gone. They said one person purchased the entire, oh yeah. They're like, 1B bought the whole stock. It's all gone. And like that for me is like, okay, wow. You're on a flight to Nigeria when one person has bought the entire duty-free bank. So yeah, Nigerians, they love to enjoy. So I think it'd be a lot more ostentatious in Africa, Nigeria, and a lot less ostentatious in the UK. A lot more gritty and real and grimy.
Amazing. We'll definitely need to put in the word with Courtney Kemp, see what we can do on that front. Carolyn, I thank you so much for making time to speak with us. We're definitely looking forward to season 4. Hopefully we can do it again, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that it'll be not post-mortem, that you'll actually make it through the entire season, and we can do a nice little recap like we did this one.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. The questions were great. It's been fun. Thank you.
The pleasure is entirely ours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeandra. Take care.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your week.